Imagine this. You're cleaning the floors of a high-rise building, working late hours, and suddenly, you overhear two co-workers making cruel jokes about you. They mock your appearance, the uniform you wear, and the job you do. You want to walk away, to pretend it doesn't hurt. But the truth is, every word stings. Now, what if I told you that this wasn't just a passing moment of frustration, but the start of something far more shocking? Stick with me. What happens next will change the way you think about courage and resilience. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. You're in for a real eye-opener today. Trust me, this isn't the kind of tale you hear every day. In fact, it's one of those stories that'll make you rethink everything you know about standing up for yourself. And if you've ever felt like an underdog, you'll want to hear every word. So, let's dive in. Meet Janet Robinson. She wasn't always the face you'd think of when you hear the words successful or empowered. Janet, like so many others, was just another person trying to make ends meet. But what made her story different, what made it truly remarkable, was the way she faced the worst kind of bullying. Right in front of her, day after day. She worked as a cleaner in a large office building, cleaning floors, bathrooms, and desks after everyone else had gone home for the day. Now, you might be thinking, so what? That's a job like any other. But let me tell you, being a cleaner isn't just about mopping floors. It's about the quiet dignity of doing the work no one else wants to do. And for Janet, it was a job she was grateful to have. But her co-workers didn't see it that way. Some people will judge you based on your job, your appearance, even the way you carry yourself. They think they're better than you. And Janet? Well, she learned that lesson all too well. She worked in an office with a few other people. People who wore nice suits, people who had degrees, people who made more money than her. And for some of them, that was all the reason they needed to treat her badly. Day after day, Janet would come in, start her shift at the same time, and begin her cleaning routine. But the longer she worked there, the more isolated she felt. It wasn't just the constant whispers when she walked by. It was the way people would deliberately avoid her. Sometimes, she'd be cleaning up after a meeting, only to hear the laughter of her co-workers echoing down the hallway. They didn't know she could hear them, but she could. The cruel comments about her job, her clothes, her very presence. It stung deeply. But there was one day, one moment, that would change everything. One afternoon, she was cleaning the break room when two of the office workers, who often joked at her expense, walked in. Janet pretended not to notice them, but she couldn't help overhearing their conversation. They laughed about her, made fun of her uniform, and then one of them, let's call him Mark, took it even further. He said, "She'll always be stuck doing this. She'll never get out of this job. She'll never be anything more than a cleaner." That was the breaking point for Janet. Now, if you've ever been humiliated in front of others, you know how it feels. But for Janet, something inside her snapped. The pain of years of mockery, the quiet suffering, it all came rushing forward. But instead of reacting the way most people would, yelling, crying, or running away, she did something else. Something unexpected. Something powerful. Instead of retreating, Janet walked right up to Mark and his friend, still holding the mop in her hand. She didn't say a word at first, but her presence alone was enough to make them both fall silent. And then, she spoke. "You're right," she said. "I am a cleaner. But at least I know what it means to work hard, to earn my paycheck, and to have the humility to do a job that needs to be done. What do you have?" Mark and his friend didn't know how to respond. They were expecting her to cower or apologize. Instead, Janet held her ground. She wasn't trying to pick a fight. She was simply standing up for herself. And in that moment, she did something they could never have imagined. She didn't just defend herself. She took control of the situation, shifting the power dynamic completely. Now, what happened next may shock you even more. The way Janet responded wasn't just a one-time thing. It wasn't just a brave stand that would fade into the background of her life. No, it was the beginning of a personal transformation that no one, least of all her bullies, could have predicted. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like the underdog? Have you ever been judged or treated unfairly just because of who you are or what you do? How would you respond if you found the courage to stand up for yourself in a way you never thought possible? We're about to dive deeper into Janet's story, and trust me, you won't want to miss how this all unfolded. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button now. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so you won't miss out on the rest of this incredible journey. Janet stood there for a moment, the mop in her hands, her heart pounding in her chest. Mark and his friend seemed completely taken aback. It was as if they didn't know how to react to someone standing up to them. But Janet wasn't finished yet. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy, but she refused to back down. "You don't get it, do you?" she said, her voice steady now. "You think you're better than me because you wear a suit and work in an office? Because you have a degree? I've got something you don't. I've got work ethic. I've got dignity. And you know what? I don't need your approval." Mark and his friend exchanged uncomfortable glances. They had expected Janet to crumble, to apologize, or maybe to leave the room with her head down. But she was standing tall, and it was making them uneasy. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Mark's friend, who hadn't spoken much, cleared his throat and muttered something under his breath. "You're crazy if you think you'll ever get out of this job." "Maybe I will. Maybe I won't," she said. "But I know that the kind of person I am isn't defined by my job title. And if you think your life is better than mine just because you have a fancier title, you've got a lot to learn." Janet's words hung in the air, powerful and raw. She could feel her heart racing, but not from fear. No, this was different. This was the kind of courage she hadn't known she had inside her. And it didn't just stop there. Mark and his friend didn't know what to say. They mumbled something about needing to get back to work and quickly left the room. But the damage had already been done. Janet had made her point. She hadn't just stood up for herself. She had exposed their cruelty for what it was: small-minded, insecure, and ultimately weak. Janet wasn't done yet. The more she thought about it, the more the fire inside her grew. She knew she couldn't let things slide anymore. The next day, she made a decision. She wasn't going to let the people who bullied her dictate her life. She was going to do something they never expected, something they couldn't take away from her. She started to make small changes, nothing drastic at first, but she took control of her life in ways she never had before. She began reading books on personal growth, on overcoming adversity, on building confidence. She joined a local group that focused on empowering women in the workplace. And slowly, things started to shift. But that wasn't the end of Janet's transformation. It wasn't long before she began standing up for others who were being treated unfairly. There was another cleaner in the building, an older man named Greg, who had been with the company for years. Greg was often the target of jokes, and Janet noticed it. He wasn't as young or as fast as the others, but he had a heart of gold. Janet knew she had to do something for him, too. One day, while the office workers were mocking Greg as he cleaned up after a meeting, Janet walked in. This time, she wasn't holding a mop. She was holding something more powerful, a voice. "That's enough," Janet said firmly, stepping into the conversation. "Greg has been doing this job for years. He's earned respect, not ridicule. If you can't say anything nice, then just don't say anything at all." The room went silent. For a moment, no one knew what to do. The bullies who'd mocked Greg were now looking at Janet as if she were a different person entirely. And in a way, she was. Janet had transformed, but it didn't come easy. Every day was a new challenge, a test of her resolve. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew that if she didn't keep going, she would lose everything she'd worked so hard to build inside herself. It wasn't just about standing up to the bullies anymore. It was about proving to herself that she was more than they thought she was. Her actions didn't go unnoticed. Slowly, Janet began gaining the respect of her coworkers. People started to look at her differently. She was no longer just the cleaner. She was Janet, strong, confident, and unwilling to let anyone push her around. Then came a moment that would change everything. One afternoon, Janet was cleaning the executive suite when she noticed something unusual. There was an envelope on one of the desks, an envelope with her name on it. She opened it slowly, unsure of what to expect. Inside, there was a letter from the building's management. It wasn't just any letter. It was an offer for a new position, one that came with more responsibilities and most importantly, more respect. The letter read, "We've noticed your work ethic, your leadership, and your courage. We believe you're ready for more. Are you interested in taking on a supervisory role with the cleaning staff?" Janet couldn't believe what she was reading. The very people who had mocked her, who had belittled her and made her feel small, were now offering her a chance to lead. To them, this was about her performance. But to Janet, it was about so much more. It was a victory not just for her, but for everyone who had ever been overlooked, underestimated, or bullied. It was a reminder that change doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes, it takes standing up for yourself, even when the world tries to push you down. And sometimes, it takes the strength to believe that you deserve more than the world tells you you do. Janet accepted the offer. She went on to become a supervisor, but more than that, she became a symbol of hope. She helped change the culture at the office, not by force, but by showing everyone that true strength comes from within. And her story, Janet's story, became a reminder that no matter who you are or what your job is, you have the power to stand up and make a difference. Now, let me ask you, how many times have you been in a situation where you felt like you didn't have the power to change things? How many times have you felt small, overlooked, or judged for something out of your control? I want you to think about it for a moment because Janet's story is your story too. We all have moments when we need to find the courage to stand up, to speak out, and to show the world what we're truly capable of. If you found inspiration in Janet's journey, if you feel that spark of hope, then please subscribe to our channel. We share stories like this all the time, and we want you to be part of it. Click the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story that might just change your life. And remember, no matter what you're facing, you have the power to make it through.